Sapna wakes up, takes in the sun, the early morning energy. She writes her journal, she runs or lifts while most of the world is still asleep. Beautiful, isn't it? Well, but her story didn't start this way. At 20, she weighed 87 kilos. To get married, she starved herself down to 52. She shrunk her body just to fit into a box. But in the process, she also shrunk her joy, her vitality, and her spark. For over a decade, she did everything for everyone else except herself. Then, in her late 30s, something shifted. She walked into a gym for the first time, nervous, hesitant, and even tearful. It felt like a confrontation, but she stayed. With a coach who understood her and a body slowly rebuilding trust, she started lifting. And then, on a whim, she ran her first 10K as a farewell to that coach. No training, just belief. She clocked 53 minutes. It changed everything. She kept running and kept showing up even during gut issues, sleepless nights, and family crisis. She ran her first marathon and stood on the podium. But more importantly, she discovered joy, not just in running, but in being alive. From homemaker to marathoner, from weight loss to wellness, from self-doubt to self-worth. Today, Sapna is a wellness coach helping women reclaim their health, their cycles, their gut, and their voice. She teaches others what she had to learn the hard way. That wellness isn't a luxury, it's your right. She didn't just run marathons, she ran into her power, and you can too.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Intentionality, where we talk about work, life with a purpose. Welcome to Intentionality, Sapna.
Thank you so much, Satish.
So, health could be your physical health, or physiological health, mental health, spiritual health, social health, emotional health, financial health. So, pretty much all of this has to be healthy for you to be well. So when you say you're talking about holistic approach towards health, so if you take runners for example, so one is running is helping you with maybe mental wellness and physical wellness if you balance it well. What other things they should focus on?
Basically, a deep connection with your own self. See, what happened today is that time of social media, and you are always seeing like Strava is there, Instagram is there, Facebook is there, LinkedIn is there. We are overfed with information, and it's not wrong if we use it in the right way. Use and abuse are two different things, and we need to have again balance. We need to know when we are abusing this. When you are constantly in front of the screen, you are watching people stat, they're taking part in world majors, and I'm nothing wrong, and I salute people who do that. You tend to get influenced. It is good to get inspired, but you will only know when you are pushing yourself beyond your. Each person is not meant to be at the help, right? We have to understand that there are limitations in our life, and it is not to make yourself feel small. We are not all of us meant to be Olympic athletes or triathletes or someone who is an elite or long distance or ultra runner. You respect them, you admire them, you get inspired by them, but not to like blind with blind eyes start imitating. People don't realize this, that something plays in their mind when they see other people, and you forget your journey and start following their journey, right? So each one of us need to have a connect with their own self, where we are able to define what success means to me, whether it is a 10K in 45 minutes or whether it is running a 10K any day I get up. To each his own. So your dreams have to be defined with what you see success and happiness as, not what others see. Most of us we start with the thought that running feels good. I lost this much kg when I started running. And then they get into that competitive mold and they forget taking a check on themselves that this is not what I started running for. All of us should have that connect where we don't lose that inner voice which is telling us something and we are going just following someone else's footsteps. So when you are on your driver's seat, you should be the driver and you should be the having the GPS, not the other person. जहाँ वो जा रहा है वहीं मुझे जाना. उसने ये रेस साइन अप की है तो मुझे भी ये करनी है. उसने वीकली 100 किलोमीटर्स किया तो मुझे 120 करना है. That is when you are losing the plot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Just focus on your journey.
Yes, it's
Maybe get inspiration from others, but focus on.
yeah. So every time something like this happens, that is why maintaining a journal is so important, because every time, what is journaling? Like I follow this practice and I advise this to my clients. It's a mandatory part of the morning routine. Before meeting the world, you meet yourself. So most of us are in a habit of, when we get up, the moment we get up, we use a mobile, and you are opening a social media platform. Now, what is opening a social media platform is letting 10,000 people in your bedroom, because you are opening that, right? So allow some time to yourself when you meet yourself, before you open yourself to the world. We all should have a small curated morning routine where you journal your thoughts. Today I have an intention of doing this, or maybe at night, tomorrow I am going to do this. These things made me happy, or I could have done this better. It's like introspection and retrospection, where you are in tune with yourself and not with other person. So what we do in the morning is how your day pans out. So it's very important that you have uh, 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 30-40 minutes in the morning where you have some practice, where you take a deep peek into yourself, how you are feeling, what is your intention, what are you happy about, what happened good, or what you can change about what could have happened in a different way. When you do this, you have fed your brain the right thoughts. And if you open social media first thing in the morning, you are not leading your life, you are leading someone else's life. Even with all big dreams that you have with respect to running, keep this part intact, and it will always guide you that I have to be in my shoes, not in someone else's running shoes.
Let's say, keeping running aside, as a human being, if I were to focus on my holistic health,
Yeah.
and I want to be well,
Well,
lead a life very well. So you talked about journaling. Get up, start with journaling, meet yourself first. So what are the other things that I can focus on throughout the day to ensure that I am well?
thank you so much for this question, because once I answer this question, a lot of things will get clear on what actually defines being. Now, that can be a different thing for different person, and it can be what fits into their lifestyle. It is not that you have to do everything. You can pick and choose what works for you, and then start building on the habits that you have. So ideally, what I do, I will share that. Like I said about journaling, I feel breath work and pranayam, where you are focusing on breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your nose. What this practice now, this practice has both emotional, spiritual, and connecting with your physiology, everything put together. I feel any coaching program or any health related program you take, and that program does not advise or suggest you to have a breath work, that program will have a very small shelf life. The success of that program is, because to have like sustainable health and wellness, you need to connect through your breath, because breath is what? Prana is what? Life. This is something which is available. We are alive only when we have breath, right? So you have to invest in that breath. Now when I'm talking to you or listening to me, you are also breathing, I am also breathing, but that is shallow breathing. We are not aware. But when you engage in deep breathing, which is like consciously, I'm doing this, you are focusing on inhaling and then you are focusing on exhaling. When you do that, you are bringing your nervous system to a parasympathetic mode, which is the rest and the digest mode. This is very important. Now, I'll tell you something. A hypothetical situation, like you are driving and there is a lot of chaos on the road. Someone comes and maybe bumps or maybe just tries to cross you, and your immediate reaction is what? You will shout, scream, maybe.
Idiot.
Idiot, yes, exactly that. So, when you engage in these practices, you are so mindful with consistent effort. You become so mindful that you will not jump into reaction. You will take a pause. So, these practices pans out in your lifestyle where you are not reactive. You respond after a pause. You will be very calculative whether I need to expend my energy here or silence is better. So now, for me, wellness is not about your how many inches is your waist, how much you weigh. It is about how you feel with respect to everything, including like how you are feeling energetically, how you like. Is your head clear, or there is a cobweb of so many thoughts, to-do list? Are you able to run yourself through the day and have energy when you go to bed? How you feel? There is a general zeal to do things, or you're just doing because you have to tick off the to-do list. These things define whether you are actually happy, healthy, and well or not, rather than just being able to run a great timing or lift good amount of weight. Internally, cellular, at the cellular level, what each cell of your body is speaking, are they happy, healthy or not? That defines wellness for me. Whether you are able to sleep well at night without waking up in the middle of the night, and then you're constantly thinking. It happens to all of us. I have been an insomniac. I have been there, so I understand. Anything that I say does not mean that others who are going through this, they are following something or doing something that is wrong. Each one of us have our journey, and it is through our journey that we learn. If you are able to eat well, sleep well, be able to spread more smiles and be energetic, and have a sense of purpose in life, that is more important, I feel. And that's my benchmark of living a healthy and holistic well life.
Start by meeting yourself, then do the breath work to invoke your parasympathetic mode, and then eat well,
Move.
smile, move well, and then sleep well. So these are the things that we should do.
Emotionally, the emotional part is most important, because I think I had mentioned to you when last time we spoke that the disease, physical disease, is the last place the disease has.
Disease comes in your thoughts first, body later. So what does that exactly mean?
Basically, when something happens in our body, it can be a pain, inflammation, anything. So we, isko lungs mein problem, isko liver mein problem hai, something like that. So we start treating that part. I don't know whether you know this or not, but each part, like if you have liver issues, it means you have had long-standing anger issues.
Okay.
Yes. If you have lung issues, you have unresolved grief. If you have thyroid issues, you have suppressed your emotions. It's a throat chakra. We speak through it, right? So if you have a lot of anger, people generally have, if you have anger issues, they will have liver issues. So you can correlate, see emotions and the body part that absorb that emotion. So how can we say that the disease is physical? It is coming from some emotion. All of us go through some kind of physical disease, but we are not aware that how there is an undercurrent that is flowing, because the cell, each cell life is dependent on what you speak, what you think, what you consume, not only food, on social media, on newspaper, on TV, what is there. Because see, if we really want to understand, cortisol, it's a stress hormone.
Right.
Now, cortisol is needed, like as a runner, if our cortisol is not spiking, we cannot run. We need to have that kick from the adrenal system to give us cortisol to run. If you wake up feeling tired, it means cortisol is not kicking in. We need cortisol. But there are times we need cortisol, there are times we don't need. Like in the evening, you want to withdraw to bed, sleep, feel relaxed, rested, rejuvenated. That will happen when the cortisol is down. If you're constantly thinking, worrying, anxious, it means at night your cortisol is up. To bring a balance in, like understanding how you can be well and healthy, the cortisol spike and the going down has to be in the right time. Like morning it should spike, all through the day it should be stable, like, and then 4 o'clock it again spikes, and then gradually it goes. Now, the urban life that we are living, we are always in front of bright screens, and we have our meetings, and we are doing all these things. The cortisol is always up. Now, work cortisol is there, running cortisol is there. You have stress in your life. You have difficult relationship. You have deadlines, commitment. No, understand all these are also what? Influencers of increasing cortisol in your system.
Right.
Now, when cortisol is increasing all the time, and chronic increase of cortisol means your immunity is at it is not optimum. Over time you will have inflammation in the body. That inflammation will turn into disease.
Given that you are a nutritional coach and holistic wellness coach, if you're talking about a person like a runner, if they have to pay attention to their nutrition, what kind of mistakes generally people do? And then what is your advice for them?
Yeah, actually, I have been there where I have made a lot of mistakes. Like the common ones, which I have seen in my running friends, like when we run together, we talk about things, and I get to know that people don't pay emphasis to what actually can enhance their performance and also recovery. The most common one is running empty stomach. See, if you are running leisurely, like just you want to do 2-3 kilometers, a jog, and if you are an overweight person and you are using running as a way to lose weight, then fasted running is good because it will help you burn fat. But the purpose you are doing it is to lose weight. Now, for us, like marathon runners who are training for long distance, over like 42 kilometers distance, running is not an exercise, it is a sport. And when you are in a sport, you need to fuel yourself, and that is where people do a lot of mistake, thinking that they can club their weight loss plan with running. So you need to have only one objective: improving your performance, and whatever come as a byproduct of training for long distances, weight loss will happen. So I have seen runners like they will not fuel themselves well before going for a hard workout. So you need to have certain things like some amount of fat, some good carbs before you go out for a run, and have that gap where you are not having queasy stomach and all that. I see most of the runners, I had banana or I did not eat anything because I did not feel like. You will not feel like. No one feels like just getting up to eat something. You have to train yourself. That is why training, that is very important. Again, after you finish your run, how quickly you replenish yourself. This is very important. There is a window where recovery happens. I am actually not a nutrition coach, but this is what I have. I am a wellness coach. Now, when you talk about nutrition, it becomes very specific numbers of what you should take as protein, fats, and carbs. What I talk about is wholesome nutrition along with the right mindset that helps you excel in the sport that you are in. So, when you finish your run and you don't eat because you don't feel like eating after a hard run or a very long run, your gut is actually closed because you have used all your energies to different extremities like legs and hands. So it is closed. You don't feel like eating, but then you have to train yourself to eat so that you recover quickly. The longer is the window where you are not eating, the slower will be your recovery. This is second. Third is hydration does not only mean water. So if you are overhydrating on water, you are what do I say? Missing out on all the fluids, the electrolytes that your body needs. Maybe you're not replenishing them, and you're just losing out on sodium, magnesium, and other stuff. So when you talk about hydration, it is water along with electrolytes. So you can have nariyal pani, you can have lemon salt jaggery water, you can have so many other things. Now there are formulations also. So hydration is not only water, it is electrolyte, because you're not losing water, you're losing sweat, and sweat has sodium. These are the common mistakes, Rana. And there are other things also, like not carbs are good. Now, what kind of carbs you are having? Some carbs are good, like overeating of processed carbs, they will not help you. So you should use complex carbs like steel cut oats, like rolled oats, maybe some kind of millets, sweet potatoes, veggies. So you should know what you are eating and how does it help you or how it does not help you. So there is no like a blanket term like you have carbs and you end up eating a lot of pasta.
Right.
That does not help. These are the few things which like common mistakes which runners make.
Use the term wholesome nutrition. What is wholesome nutrition?
If I talk about our ancient times, dal, chawal, roti, some veggies, and maybe buttermilk. When you are having food as a whole, like nowadays, I see a lot of emphasis on I am not meeting my protein requirements, my vitamin D3 is low, B2 is low, B12 is low, and this food has this. Earlier, all these were not there. So now, like we were talking, this thing has come in our focus suddenly. So when you treat food as a whole, you don't divide them into like protein, fats, and carbs. Of course, knowledge and having a right information that you are not overdoing them is important. But always look at food as whole. Like you should have your carbs, you should have your protein, you should have your fats. But don't try to bifurcate, okay, I will eat this less, I will not, this is not good. So this, when you have that kind of mentality, you will have fear of not eating certain things. And more than the food, your energy towards that fear that you have, because it will cause certain negative effects, will start playing on your health over time. So wholesome means you have balance of everything in moderation. There are days where you are, so I try to tell my clients to go by 80-20 rule, which means that 80% of the time you know that you are following certain things and you have goals in mind and you eat accordingly. And 20% of the time, because life happens, you have you're traveling somewhere or you are invited somewhere, you can't always be fixated with my protein, carbs, fat. So you allow yourself to enjoy. So when you enjoy, that factor of fear should not play in your mind. You should have that dialogue that because I take care of myself 80% of the time, now when I'm enjoying, my body gives me the privilege to enjoy that 20% of the time. That is when it becomes holistic and wholesome. And all the time, like, I have to reduce my carbs, have to reduce my carbs. Carbs, you need carbs, but you should know how to use it in a strategic and a smart way so that carbs help you fuel your performance and you don't bother about like how much all the time. We are not bodybuilders. See, every sport has their specific requirements which you have to follow. I had a time in my life when I wanted to look a certain way aesthetically when I was into gymming and all that. I would keep weighing every morsel of the food that I was eating on the food scale. Now, I am not into that sport. Like aesthetically, I have to look a certain way. My muscles have to be a certain way. Why do I need to give my mind so much of stress to keep measuring food? Then food is not that is going to give you energy, because when you're putting it on the food scale, you're bothering about how much is the right amount. You have to have that kind of connection with your body, that your body is only going to tell you that you need this much and this much is enough for me. For that, you need to go inward, not outward. That is when the food becomes wholesome.
So what I hear is when your primary goal is to count the calories and count the macros and micros, you are not being mindful when you are eating. So rather than doing that, maybe be mindful in eating and let those micros and macros be part of that, and then let it become.
And then your body will absorb them beautifully, if you're not stressing about it. Now your body becomes a vehicle to help you move forward, because the energy with which you are eating the food, your body will digest it. If you are stressing, again, that stress hormone thing that spiraling thing will come into the play, and your body does not have that capacity to digest. So more than anything else, like I teach my clients, the moment you have food on your plate, your gadgets should be out, and just bless the food with whatever you want. Yesterday only I had a call with a client who was asking me about my daughter is lacking in her protein requirement and what should I give her. I said, all that is good. Whatever at age 17, you give her everything. Now she's growing up, body will learn to digest. Why you have to now teach her this is protein, this is fat, this is carbs? Where all these things are coming from? It is because we are overfed with information. This generation, no, we don't need to know so much. The idea is you have to cleanse your energy when you are seeing the food, when you are seeing, the moment you see even if one fried item is there, how can I eat this? The food is harmless. It's your energy that is harming the food. So there are times when you enjoy, allow yourself to enjoy, because you are in a life and it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So when you are in a marathon, you just take every day as it comes, and you cannot have a foolproof plan all the time. So when you have that flexibility, you will give your body enough time and energy to move as the day happens to you.
Okay. You also talk about catabolic and anabolic pathways, sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. So can you break that down for the audience?
There are a lot of activities that we do which are catabolic in nature. There are a lot of activities which are anabolic. Now, catabolic is breaking down of something. So when you digest something, it is breaking down to give you energy. Right? When anabolic, like strength training, you are building something, muscle building, bone density, building of lean muscle mass. You are building strength. That is anabolic. Now, running is a catabolic activity. It is actually, I should know, it is destroying. Like, you are using your organs to get energy to expend in running. And when you do strength training, it is anabolic. So it builds. So a person running without strength training, he is only destroying. But alongside, if there is an like mobility work, Pilates, yoga, all of these are building. When you do breath work, it is anabolic, because it is building your system, it is building immune system, it is building respiration. So there are activities that are catabolic in nature. We need catabolic activities also, but there has to be something anabolic. And once we understand, we will see how many activities are catabolic. Stress is catabolic, right? So it is not good. It is not building something, it is destroying something. Rest, sleep, rejuvenation, restoration, spending time with family, hugging someone. These are anabolic things. So, a balance between these things, when you do anabolic things, you set out to enjoy even catabolic stuff like running. So, there should be a balance between two things where you are able to know, okay, this is catabolic, this is anabolic, and how I can club them together in my 24-hour days schedule, and how I can enjoy both the things, and they are complementary and not against each other.
So if you are burning energy through running, build energy through sleep, spending time with family, meditating,
Yeah, holiday.
strength.
Yeah, strength training, all of these things, so that you can enjoy running better. Running better does not mean more running. It means to do all these things so that you can run better. So you asked about this parasympathetic and sympathetic. So if we try to understand one single thing, like the computer, it does not work without the CPU. You need to have the central processing unit. Our body's central processing unit is our brain, the central nervous system. Now, this nervous system has two modes to operate. We are operating in two modes either of the time. Like anytime we are operating in either of them. One is parasympathetic mode and the other is sympathetic mode. So, sympathy means like something is not good. So, sympathetic mode means you are in fight or flight mode, which means your stress levels are high. Now, if I am on the road and a tiger is chasing me, so I am like, I'll run away, right? So that time my fight or flight response is on. But as the tiger chases me and I win that fight or the race, my stress hormone will slowly come down, and I'll try to breathe in. I'll try to relax myself, and that stress I get away from that stress. That is parasympathetic mode. Now, what does parasympathetic mode does? It allows you to rest and digest. So, if you had a heated argument with someone, and right after that you have your lunch served, so you had a heated argument, which means your body is in parasympathetic mode. Your nervous system is stressed out. So, that particular time, if you are from one thing, you are switching on to eating the food, for eating the optimal digestion of what you are eating, you need to be in parasympathetic mode. Okay, but you are in sympathetic mode, and from this mode you are immediately going to have your lunch. You might have had the best of the wholesome food that I talked about, but your body will not digest, because for digestion you need to be in rest and relaxed mode. So these two modes, parasympathetic mode is something which enhances your health, rest, digest, vitality, life forces, clear thinking capability, action taking skills, and all this happens when you train your mind and body and brain to work in parasympathetic mode. So the practices that help are getting up and not just getting up and not using mobile, spending time with yourself, engaging in breath work, nature, being in nature. Like as runners, we know how beautiful it is to be out in nature in lush green field and just keep running. It is very good for our nervous system, because even looking at green spaces, blue spaces, bird chirping, listening to like something in nature, like that gives our brain rest that we need. Because the kind of work life we have now, and way we are switching from one thing to another, and lot of commitments and deadlines, we have 24 hours, but in those 24 hours we are trying to fit in 48 hours of work. So that is not sustainable, and it's a short recipe for burnout, adrenal fatigue. So what happens is that over your kidneys there are adrenal glands. They have a job of secreting cortisol. This cortisol gives us energy and focus to perform our life functions. When you are constantly engaging in activities which are giving you stress, your adrenal glands are kicking cortisol up to a point where they will say, I'm sorry, my work, I am like limited capacity I have, I can't function the way your life is functioning. That time they will stop secreting, like they will secrete the cortisol, but that is not enough for you. There is a term called adrenal fatigue or burnout, where you wake up feeling tired because your body is asking you to stop. If we try and understand, Satisha, our bodies are our internal like guide. They will always try to take you back to your set point, but we have our worldly goals, targets, and when these two are not in lines, there will come a gap. Either it can be a health mishap or something which will try to, it can be an injury. For runners, no, there are times when we don't understand that physical injury has not come because of any physical issue. It has come because your life does not have
And that
balance.
could like stress.
Yeah, that stressor can come as an inflammation somewhere. You will twist your leg, something untoward will happen, and you, because nature will intervene if you are doing something in which is not in balance. So it is very important to train your body to engage with morning practices so that you are able to bear or take on the load of the day, because we don't know what the day is going to show us. If we try and spare some time with ourselves in the morning, you build an internal reserve where you don't react, you respond, you take pauses. And also several times during the day, like I teach my clients of pockets of mindfulness, like several times during the day, like every hour, 1 minute pause, silence, not doing anything. Like keep an alarm for every hour. The moment the alarm rings, you just stop everything and take a pause, some deep breaths. It's like resetting your system. These things are very important. If you really want to perform well, go outward and like have great things, be successful, you need to go more inward. So I heard BK Shivani saying this quote once, and I just love the way she said, people who don't have time for meditation need to meditate 1 hour. For others, 10 minutes is enough. It's because they don't have time. They need to put in the more time than the others who have time, because their life is not stressed out and their life is stressed out. So the more and more you are outward, outgoing, output driven, the more you need to have time for yourself. Otherwise, it won't be sustainable.
See, if somebody is working in a 9 to 5 job in Bangalore, it's not 9 to 5. It's maybe 7 to 7 or 7 to 9, including travel, traffic. So stress is not just at work as well. Stress is on the road, and people don't follow traffic rules. For you are mad at them. So given it is 7 to 7, so if I were to take those mindful minutes, so while I'm in the travel, what can I do to take those mindful minutes?
So yeah, there are people like that, and not everyone has the luxury. Like I am like very particular. If I don't have this much time, I will not be able to function during the day. For others, I suggest, how about just 5 minutes? Now, if you say that you don't have 5 minutes, then you need to seriously check your priorities in life. There is something definitely wrong if you keep on saying, I don't have even 5 minutes. Either you are trying to put up an excuse, or there is something seriously wrong with your lifestyle. So just start with 5 minutes, because the research is back that even 5 minutes of mindful meditation, just closing your eyes and doing deep breathing, it will reset how you see everything. And once you do it consistently over a period of time, like you are in the midst of a traffic and you are traveling by public transport, or somewhere where you are not driving or someone is driving and you are behind, just step out of like that phone thing. We are so fixated with scrolling. It's an epidemic. We say we don't have time. We are misusing that time which we have to our disposal. Because everyone, even the top performers, people who are doing great, they all have 24 hours. It means that they are doing something different with the time they have. They are mindfully investing their times in the things that matter most in their life, and not wasting their times on side hustle, the things that are not important. So we, for this, to identify this, we first need to be mindful. And it begins with spending 5 minutes in the morning, as small as 5 minutes, several times during the day. Okay, just let me close it and take 2 minutes of time to recheck myself, reset myself, get back to neutral state. All of that might have, you need to put some anchor in the beginning, maybe an alarm, like I said. But gradually, as you keep doing it, it will become a part of your subconscious habit. Like when I started blessing my food, every time I would eat halfway, I'll realize, oh, I forgot to bless my food. I do that as a practice every day. Then I put an alarm in the beginning, like, okay, person is coming to give me food. He will tell me, bless the food. My daughter, my son, I have taught all of them. The someone or the other remember in the house. Now, all four of us, my husband, my kids, and myself, the first thing we do is just pranam to the food and some 5 words to invoke blessing to the food. Now, when I look back, I was struggling with it. Every time I would be halfway or after the food, I'll remember, oh, I forgot to bless my food. And it consciously became a habit. Now, I don't need to do anything. You have to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? When the why is figured out, how will figure itself.
Yeah. So get the purpose first.
Yeah, why are you doing it? If you don't align with why you're doing it, no, you will leave it midway. Why do you want to do it? What changes you want to? These are powerful questions, and no one can ask you. You have to ask yourself, are you liking yourself this way? What can you do to get it better? Can you ask for help? Asking for help is important. Finding out things. There is always something that you can do. And once you hang on to that thing, you will see a result. Then when the result comes, everything becomes automatic because you want to keep feeling better. Yeah. And more importantly, if you are feeling happy and healthy in your mind, in your emotions, when you are sorted and you have clarity of thought, your physical health is just a byproduct of everything that you're doing. So when I say thought makes us sick, even the reverse is also true. The thoughts can make us healthy also. I explained how poor thinking, anxiety, negative, disempowering thought, worry creates inflammation in the body. Then positive thinking, gratitude, joy, inspiration, happiness, compassion, empathy, all these can also make us healthy.
Absolutely. Right.
It's a choice we are making.
Right. So, talking about holistic health, well-being. So there are men and then there are women. How much ever we say women are as equal as men, we are all built differently. So, is there a difference in taking care of ourselves as men versus women?
Such a beautiful question, because this is what I have understood in the second stint with my running. This is what difference I have made in my training also. First of all, men have one cycle which is circadian rhythm. It is a 24-hour cycle, starts with the sun rising and again next day sun rising, so it's 24 hours. We also have that cycle. So our bodies, all cells of our bodies have its own circadian rhythm, each and every cell. So that is why it is important to follow certain practices in a punctual way. Like if you have your breakfast at 10, if you have a lunch at 1, dinner at 7, the body learns with discipline. You are having food at a certain time every day, most of the days. So you will fall asleep also at in the same zone. If you are having morning breakfast at 10 o'clock one day, 12 o'clock one day, then lunch one day at 1 o'clock, then another at 3 o'clock, your body is confused. Then you don't get sleep. There is no regularity, no uniformity. This circadian rhythm, men and women both have, like 24-hour cycle. Apart from the 24-hour cycle which we have in common, there is one more rhythm which women have, which is infradian rhythm. This rhythm corresponds with our monthly cycle, which is 28 days, almost 28 to 35 days. Each one has their own cycle. We have ebb and flow of hormones. And in different parts of the day, different parts of the month, they rise, peak, plunge, then other hormone rise, plunge. If we are not aware what's happening in the 28 to 30 days, we will keep operating like men. Like training plan for a man is like, do this tempo, do this interval, do this long run, irrespective of which month, which time of the month they are, because they don't have infradian, they don't bleed, they don't have menstrual cycle. But because we have menstrual cycle, there are times in the month, because of the release of some hormones, we are more primed for a great interval session. There are times we are more primed for an HR run. There are times where our body doesn't want to do anything and we have to rest. If we don't know as women, and if we are taking plans from coaches who are just giving generic plan for men and women, then you're bound to suffer. One day you will, because your willpower, how long you are going to push if your physiology is not allowing you. This one thing many women, sadly, because there is no research specifically on women, there is a lot, like we are being treated. One thing I had read from Dr. Stacey Sims, she says that women are not small men. We operate differently because of the two cycles that we are in. So the first 10, 12 days when we are in the follicular cycle, follicular phase, the estrogen hormone is peaking up, like gradually increasing. Estrogen hormone gives us energy, vitality, and we feel good to go out and do something.
So, first 10 to 12 days
Yeah.
of the cycle.
That time we are primed for great workout.
Okay.
So slowly, as gradually your periods gets over and you are picking up your estrogen, you can do great workout. You can have HIIT or maybe great plyos or maybe interval workout at running. Then there is an ovulation, one day, 14th, 15th day. That time you have energy and strength, but you are more prone to injury because of joint laxity. There is a time when you have, like, you can get injured. So that time you can do a lot of strength workout. Then there comes luteal phase. The first half of the luteal phase, you still have energy for great strength sessions.
That's how many days?
Again, luteal phase is 15 days also.
15 days.
So there, 12, 13 days, one day ovulation. then 13,
The
14
second
days.
half.
Second half. This second half, if you don't want to understand too much of this, at least take care of yourself 10 days before your period. That time, progesterone is on the rise, and progesterone delays your recovery. So you think of a hard tempo or a hard interval session you are doing just before your period. No wonder you are going to feel sluggish and fatigued, because that hormone does not support great recovery.
Okay.
So if you want to do an HR run, talk about endurance, because endurance you can still go slow and keep running. And there might be days in the last fag end of the luteal phase where you don't have energy. Allow yourself the privilege to have rest. That is why these cycles are in place, so that we don't behave or talk or act like men, because there is so much of variety. And honestly, if women start following this, they will be primed to perform better. But only if they work in this fashion where they know ebb and flow of the hormones and take it accordingly. And it is not like, there are many women who think that if I don't train, I will lose out. Training against body's physiology, you are going to dampen.
Right.
So if we understand this, it's better. So that is why there is so much of difference between how men and women train. Especially, I see a lot of women who are runners over 40. After 40, your hormones are naturally going to decline. So if you are in the perimenopause phase and you are going through the transition, allow yourself that grace to take a step back. And want to train, but train with grace, that I am in this phase and there will be changes in my physiology. I accept and embrace them. There will be better days. Let me embrace what is there right now so that I can perform better, because ultimately you can't juggle around so many things with your body. You need to be in tune and align with your hormones to perform better. And after menopause, it's a completely different game. You can do so well. So that education and exposure, like I say that a parachute only goes up when it is open. You have to keep your mind open to learn. If you are closed, you will never learn.
Right. So
So
that's
that
so the workout should not look the same for men and women.
Yeah, definitely. That is why, now coaches also need to understand that.
Absolutely.
And if they become hard on the trainee without knowing what she is going through, it might build a feeling of like, I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough, which is not actually right. So even male coaches should have a little exposure where they know that women during their period or before or after it, they go through different, and for each one it is different. Like there are women who train during the periods, and there are women who are not able to get up from it. So it is not a cookie cutter thing. For each one, it is different based on our physiology and our history. So when you know yourself well, you will not try to do something which others are doing, because you know your body can't take it. And the more and more you listen to your body, in long run, the body is only going to reward you.
Right.
You need to have that patience, that instant gratification is not the thing with running or performance.
Makes sense. I have two daughters.
Yeah.
Both of them have started running.
Okay, wow.
And third day of the period, they say, yeah, today I'm ready for running. Let's go
Yeah.
for running. Is that okay to?
Yeah, 100%. See, ultimately, I will say one thing. Your body is the best guide. If they are able to run and come back not feeling drained, it means their body has adapted, because they have been doing it and they don't have those many symptoms when they start bleeding. Like many women, many girls, they will get a lot of stomach cramps and backaches. So if in this, you can walk, because that will allow blood circulation, and back muscles will, the spasm that's happening, that will reduce. Walking is good because it is restorative and it is not too much intense. But think of someone who has got back spasm or stomach pain and they are jumping. You can only say that's not right.
Right.
So your in like wisdom, in inner wisdom will tell you that this is not right. And at this age, they'll find running as play. So they will not do something which they can't enjoy.
Right.
So ultimately that enjoyment, fun quotient, if that is missing and they're doing it just because they have to get into doing it, which happens with us. So that time you will miss.
Yeah, but that's one thing. I don't have to force them to go. So they say, today we are ready to go. Let's go.
Yeah.
So, okay. What is this relative energy deficiency in sport?
Yeah.
And how is it related to women?
Yeah, actually, it can be with men also. Basically, it means the deficiency of energy for sport. Now, again, when I said that if you are into running or long distance running or any sport, like if people are doing CrossFit, some people will do a small workout and they're done. Then they will follow. There are people who follow long list of 2-3 workout. You have to understand if you're doing something as a part of your exercise movement or it is a sport. When you are engaging in more than number of hours, it is a sport. It becomes a sport. And when you are training for a sport, we need to understand we can't underfuel and overperform. It goes hand in hand. If you have a diesel car, can it work with a kerosene?
No, it can't.
It will get stuck there, something will go wrong. And so simple, we have to understand, if you really want to do well in marathon, you cannot club your weight loss plans with that. With women, why specifically this is more in vogue is because women have body image issues. Women feel that if they eat more, they will put on weight. They want to lose weight and perform, because they come into running for losing weight, and slowly that performance, like I want to do a sub 4, I want to do a sub 420, that catches on them and they see other people doing. So they are trying to fit two things in one scheme. It is not going to work. So what happens is that you are under fueling yourself and you are doing more than what your body with that fueling can expand. Maybe you are running more, maybe you are not, you are spending more time in gym, and you are basically what, you are vacant inside and you're pushing. You'll burn out, you will have injuries, you will have slow recoveries, you might have digestive disorders. All of these things come when you are not fueling, giving yourself the right macros and also the micronutrients like iron, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus. All these things are also important. So when we get into sport, we don't think of these things. This come over a period of time if we are not doing the right stuff. So learning how to, if you are doing something, you need to learn about it. It is for your body. Now, if I do something and I want to excel in that, I need to be nuanced. So for that, you can't cheat yourself. You need to be honest. Is running my passion, or am I using it as a tool to lose weight? You have to ask yourself this. If you want to lose weight, run 5 kilometers fasted. Now, why you have to run a marathon? Marathon will never help you lose weight sustainably. When we are in training for a marathon, we lose weight. The moment we are off, we'll come back. You know that, really. So that's not sustainable, because you can't keep running 100 kilometers for a year. So for a particular period of time, you will lose weight. Like for bodybuilding, they will do certain things. They will dry up. They will not drink water for that tonality and all that. But can they keep doing it sustainably?
Six packs won't be there
Yeah,
forever.
they won't be there forever. So anything that you have to do sustainably, you have to follow a sustainable fuel plan. Then only it's going to work. So this is more cited in women when they have menstrual issues. They will start missing their periods. They will have iron loss and all of that. So young women don't understand this. They overtrain and under fuel. That is where the gap comes, and this energy deficiency in sport happens.
Dilip Bhai told me the other day you helped him break the barrier of 4 hours, sub 4. And then I also have noticed, your splits are always progressive. So when somebody is priming up for a race and they want to have a strong race, so strong finish, not necessarily in terms of time. So I should be feeling much energetic at the end compared to when I started. So I should feel that I did it, and I should be able to put my full potential. If somebody has to prime themselves up for that, it's not just physical strength that is needed, that is mental strength as well. So how can one prepare themselves for such a finish?
Now, when I look back, I see my running progressively, or maybe you can call it negative splits, came because, again, listening to my body. We do an amount of warm-up and drills. When you start running, after a certain time, your body gets into that zone. So like I spoke to you earlier about this, there are people who are, like there are runners who are seasoned, like they have run several marathons, and they have the knack and the capacity and the confidence to hit an average split from the top to the end. There are people I have seen, and those splits look really like awe-inspiring. How can like a cookie cutter, like 5, 5, 5, 5, 430, 430, and it's so beautiful to look at. But not everyone can do that, because we are all humans, and marathon is like an amount of days you train. You don't know what will happen on the race day, because that's a unique day. So many factors have to come together on that particular day for you to get your goal fulfilled. So what I have seen in myself is when I start running, I see, like even with all the warm up and drills and everything, I feel that there is something that is tight, that will take some time to open up. Okay, I tell myself, marathon is a long distance. Maybe I will not be able to do negative splits, but the difference between the first half and the second half, the lesser it is, the better, which means I have not gone all out in the beginning. Now, this is a theory part. which you also understand and I also understand. But if I tell this to a runner who has been running ulta, like positive splits, he will not be like tomorrow if you get up with him and tell him that you run negative splits, this is the theory, you do it. It is not, because they are hardwired to run like that. Because I am full of energy, let me give my all out. Because I am fresh now, I will run faster. Because second half mein to energy aise bhi dip hoga. People think like that. And this is the habitual way we all think. For to be able to do a negative split or a progressive run, you have to do that in training multiple times. Train your mind, like unlearning what you have learned. To tell yourself, I will take slow. I will allow my body to get into that zone. I will help my body with sufficient easy movement so that they loosen up and and I am able to give better in the second half. More importantly, what I feel is 2023, I did a lot of aerobic runs, HR runs. When you do slow, easy runs, your body is learning to use fat as a source of energy. Because glycogen you can store this much only in your muscles, in your liver, and then it will get over. What you use later on that, because एक time के बाद आपका digestion बंद हो जाता है, आप कुछ भी खाओ आपको pukish जैसे लगता है. Fat comes into use that time. So if you have done a lot of aerobic runs, like zone 2, easy runs, like depending on your age and other things, we calculate a lot of stuff. You do that, you are training your body to use fat as a source of energy. So when you are able to do that in your training runs, later on in the marathon, your body will have that energy by using fat as... See, when you are expending energy, when you are running, your body is working out the logistics, calculation. Okay, glycogen chala gaya, muscle se nikal gaya, kya use kare, upar se kha raha hai, wo bhi. So it will divert, find out from where it can, based on what you have trained it in your training runs. That is where slow, easy aerobic runs come in use, and your body adapts to using fat. Now, when you have done a lot of easy runs, in the second half of the marathon, when you are tired, muscles are tired, legs are cramping up, your body will know how to use fat. And then that time you can use that fat for a faster finish time. Regarding Dilip, I remember, I think, which marathon, Mumbai marathon he ran, and I saw his splits. And that time I was off running, like that sabbatical which I took. He went for a sub 4 and then he did, I think, 4, 9, 10 something. And I saw his splits. Until 30 kilometers, he was well within the range of doing a good sub 4. And then 12 kilometers, he struggled badly. I told, I had seen your training, you were in good zone to do a sub 4, but what went wrong was your execution was faulty.
Right.
That day he did not understand what actually you meant by execution is faulty. I said, you gave your all out and your engine में कुछ टंकी में कुछ था ही नहीं. तो अभी when you use that conservatively, because see, when I have 5 kilometers, I know, okay, ये तो इतना है मेरे पास, let me give all out. So like that calculation which a businessman does,
Right.
you know, when you are nearing the end, you can try take that risk. Until then, run in a zone where you know it is not like too much of discomfort. That is there for people who are doing like sub 4. I'm not talking about people who do like sub 3. For them, it will be a different ball game altogether because they train differently. Their mindset is different. For person who wants to do a sub 4, which is every marathoner's dream, I am saying that trying to train a lot of long runs. We did 19 long runs for him to actually...
Is that how
Yeah.
you ran together?
We ran together, and I would always... in the end, I will always like, and he would say, you aap to aise fire karte ho last mein, because I have trained myself that way. I keep conserving energy, and last, you will see a major difference in my splits in the last 10 kilometers. So I have, it's like, it's an character thing also. Most of the time you want to prove that we can do this. You have to tell yourself to stay grounded when you are running, to hold your nerves. So running is not only a physical thing, it is it's mental. When you are able to hold, not let your ego come in between, that is when you are able to perform optimally for a long period of time. Otherwise, usually what happens, the ego will get the better of us.
Right.
That is why character building is so important. So alongside your physical training, you're also training your mind to hold your horses. Don't go all out. Conserve your energy, because right now everyone might be going faster than you people who are slower, but later on you will only pass by them.
Right.
When you use your energy in a conservative way, keep telling yourself, I will have better energy. And once you have done that in the training for a very long time, like frequently, you will know that you can do it on the race day. If you have never done it before and you try new things in the race day, you are going to fail. This is how, yeah.
You wrote this book called We the Stories, and I've not read it yet, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But I did glance through it, and it's very easy read because it's not too much of content, but presentation is good. And then there are illustrations and quotes to start with. So very easy to read.
Yeah.
So tell us about this book. When did this happen? What was the motive behind it? What's the goal?
Yeah, basically, since like childhood, I did not mention this that like when I was an introvert child, the only thing I had with studies, I told you, I had a habit of writing in my diary, like all the time. My feelings I would express in diary, like I don't feel good. People look at me this way. People cheer about me. They make fun of my weight. They tell me that don't stay close to something. It will break off you if you just put your weight on that. I have heard all of that. So the only like I told about my mom. The other thing was writing, writing, writing. And I did not know when I was like writing became a medium of expression for me. And I would write letters to God. I would write, address myself, share my feelings on the diary. And it was a childhood practice that I would do. And I do it even now. So, and like there were times I would write an essay or a letter or a paragraph, something. No, people would comment that you write so well, you write. And I actually, because it's a habit, I don't know whether I write well. You should write a book. You should write a. People would like on my many of my Facebook posts. Now there will be, when is your book coming? Like very early on when I would share, I had a habit of writing whatever comes across or something insightful which people can learn from. But then I would say, what, writing a book is a completely different ballgame. Or they just read a good passage and they tell me that you should write a book. It's not done like that. Then in 2019, my husband enrolled me in a coaching course from Peak Performance by Arfeen Khan, who is Ritik Roshan's coach also. He like again, he supported me in this also. He sent me a link and told me that you register in this master class because I see a flair in you to educate and help people get better. I said, what you are saying? He said, no, people come and ask you questions. That means that you have something that you can give them. I enrolled in that free master class and then I ended up being in his coaching class and I learned about life coaching, about our negative thought patterns, encode, e-codes, reprogramming, all of that, emotional quotient and things that I shared with you. Then Arfin Khan, my coach, he told me that writing a book is something which is an extension of you. And he will suggest that to all his coach trainees that you should definitely write a book because what you can give to people comes through the work that you do. And book is something which can stay with people forever even if you are not there. The people can carry you along. And because I had a habit of like if I observe things, if I see people talking, I'll create stories out of that. And that particular story, incident or experience will come with a moral. So when I wrote this book, my kids were small and they would keep on doing something, life experiences. I travel, I observe something, I see poor people begging or people who are doing some like cleaning work, mopping work. There are a lot of incidents and experiences. Everything is real in this book. There is no part of this book that is fabricated. That is why it is we the stories. It's because the stories are of we, the people, the humans that I meet, I come across. Maybe when I go to buy my coffee, or maybe when I'm in the restroom of a restaurant and that girl is cleaning the floor. I try to derive lesson from people's lives, what they talk, how they talk, what they're coming with. And I had a habit of putting them on Facebook. So many people said me that you can collate all these only and make it in a book and you don't have to do the extra work of writing out everything. Honestly, this book is a compilation of everything that I have posted on Facebook.
Okay. So that's how it came into life.
Yeah.
So that's why journaling is a good thing. It can become a book.
Exactly. And honestly, it was all documented. My friend helped me with the collation of everything. Then another friend who was into editing, he did that work and that is how it came to life. And at least now when people tell me, they don't know that I have a book and they tell me, you should write a book. Then I share the link of the book that I have already written a book.
Nice. Now, if you were to go back in life and meet Sapna, the 20-year-old, what would you tell her?
There are times when I remember this girl and first thing I say to her is thank you for everything that you were. Thank you for having the courage to take a step when you had not immense or like enough resources in terms of knowledge, in terms of support. You had the courage to step your foot in the unknown. Thank you for making Anita Gupta my former maiden name to Sapna Agarwal, where someone wants to know about my life. If it was not for her, I would not be myself. This is what actually truly gratitude for that girl, for that woman who went through so much and never give up, never gave up.
She was a good student.
Thank you.
Now, being mother is not easy. It's a tough job, 24/7 job. And it's very easy for us to say the men, get into the gym and do the thing. And especially, if you're taken care of your family, you've built the family, you've brought your kids up, and then after 40, now you have some time to think about yourself. But already 40 years have gone. Sometimes it could be very intimidating to think of, okay, now I have to do something for myself. So I'm sure there are many in this world who are in that phase of their life. So what would you tell them? Where do they get started? How do they get started?
Such a beautiful question. So I remember a quote which I had read. I keep reading these quotes which help us with understanding about clarity about things. Like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years back. The another better time or best time is now. There are so many stories of people doing great in their 70s or later on, even in the evening of their life. Like so, yes, time has passed by, but your time can still come. So to think that you are already 40 and you are done with life is now again limiting yourself. You can start today, and in 1 year's time, there can be a massive, you can become a completely different person. So never test or judge yourself with how much what time you have spent. Like it's better to build something rather than repenting on what you could not do. So 40 is the new 20. And if I am at 40 now, or any other woman who is listening to me is at 40 now, they still have so much. And honestly, there are many women who are in their 40s and 45s where the kids have grown up and they are moving out of the house for building their career. It happens with menopause. Like we are in our perimenopause phase. We are feeling emptiness, loneliness, and at the same time, because kids have their life, they are settling back to what they want to pursue in life. So instead of looking at it like an empty nest kind of a thing, you should think that now I have come to a time where I need to invest in myself. It can be like building a small anything that you might have liked in your early days, because what I have learned in my coaching is anything that you have done in your childhood, it makes you forget the sense of time. Like something you enjoy as a hobby, it can be sketching, art, music, or some kind of thing that you engage in and you lose sense of time. And because of work, life, career, and other stuff, that thing no longer features in your life. This is the time you get that thing back and become a child again. So engaging in things that there are women who would practice classical dancing and things that they felt that this is my passion. It can be baking. For so many women like baking, but they don't want to disturb the time they want to give to kids, and they just forego their passion. Now is the time you do that. So start looking at this age as a second beginning rather than cribbing about the time that you lost. It is always where you are putting your focus on. I always say this is this confirmation bias. The more and more you focus on the lack will grow in your life. The more and more you focus on what is good about the situation, you will figure out that there is still something that I can do. And then just keep doing that. And you never know. You just walk one step, and when you look back, you have covered miles. So this is how it is.
So one thing that I've noticed throughout your life is right from maybe except 20, from Lorengal till now, you had someone by your side guiding you. Do you think it is advisable when someone is starting, because it is intimidating and you're not done it by yourself, it may be worthwhile to reach out to someone and then seek their help and have someone as your coach or a mentor?
My God, like this is actually, see, there are times you learn through your own experience, but it will take you 5, 10, 15, 20 years of trial and error and going a distance. okay, this does not work out, coming back, going a distance, it does not work out, then coming back. There are people who learn by experience, but right now, because this field and every coaching is, and like, it's an industry that's going to stay whether or not anything works, because humans are going to stay, and when humans are there, they need coaching. So each one of us are expertise in something. That is why we go to an person who can give you specialized knowledge for something. When you hire a coach, it can be like nowadays runners keep strength coach, a nutrition coach, a running coach, and also someone who can help them alleviate that stress, which is a byproduct of the modern life. Why even coaches have coaches? Correct. Even I had coaches in my life to learn from. There is no hiding this fact, because I have learned from the best. I did my coaching course, then I learned about gut health. Then I had my health coach who taught me certain things, which opened so many things in front of me. So you have to tell yourself that you cannot know everything, and we all have limited time. We have finite time on this planet. We want to speed up our performance and the way we are leading our life, being happy and being able to enjoy everything. For that, if there is someone, you have pointed out a beautiful thing, that there was always someone who would guide me, like Asif did, like Lauren Gill did, then my coaches, the life coaches that I had. So I was able to understand and join the dots, because they were there hand holding my journey. When I look back, okay, she's there. When I look back, okay, he's running behind me. So I know someone is guiding me. Like, I might not have belief in myself, because someone else is believing in me. I will try to not to let him down, and in a way perform better. So it's always advisable that you see someone you resonate with. There are a lot of Instagram pages. There are so many things online now. The person whose ways of life, the ideologies, the principle is putting out, if that resonates with you, like somewhere you find a match, hang on to that person, hire that person, let that person invest in your life, and see how you can perform better in life and in your sport in a smaller time frame. So coaching is advisable. Like, it is something which we all should see. There are times, no, we think free का knowledge से हो जाएगा सब कुछ. ये होता है ना, it's a mentality. Google में सब कुछ है, YouTube भी हमारा teacher है, वो सब है. There are times you need accountability. There are times you need immediate solution, like, and a coach is there. There are times you just want to share everything, and that Google and YouTube will not do. And you can't keep searching. In times of need, you will not keep on searching YouTube all the time. That time you need a human to understand, a human who can listen to you, a human, when you talk to that person, you feel heard. That no machine AI can do for you.
And you need external eyes and ears.
Correct. Rightly so.
Thank you so much, Sapna, for coming on the pod and sharing your wisdom. Really appreciated.
And thank you so much, because I think I have spoken so much today, and it feels so good that now when I spoke about so many things, I realized that I had so much to share because of the beautiful questions. But I just shared my life story with you over call that day, and the way you were able to take out all the nuances of things that could help people. And the only thing which I want to leave from here saying is, we will always have some kind of negative self-talk pulling us down. We are always greater, stronger, and more powerful than that voice once you start investing yourself in the right place. Never think that you are not enough.
Yeah.
This is my message.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you.